Recording. All right, we're recording. Now we're starting. All right, hello, this is Divine Sunshine for Divine Unisouls, and this is the Playground Experience. I have joining me my co-host, Adrian Williams, and our
Aloha.
beautiful co-host, Kathy D. Okay, so now today's topic is defining the divine feminine. So this has been a topic that we feel is very dear to our hearts because we have concentrated on the divine masculine, but we feel like we need to pick apart an understanding of defining the divine feminine. Okay, so I'm going to let you got mute on, but I'm throwing it to you,
I want to
April.
throw Kathy D.
You want to throw the cat to D? Oh my
Yeah.
God, pass it. Okay,
Look at her face. She wants to cut me through the screen, but she can't.
all right. We passing it to you, Kathy D. So, Kathy D, what is your definition of a divine feminine?
If you want to make it easy, we can go straight. Just what is feminine?
What is feminine?
I think you can look at it in a lot of different aspects. It was given to us in so many different ways. What we feel personally is feminine, what society tells us is feminine, and then what advertising tells us is feminine.
Okay, I like
And,
that.
so what I feel is feminine is just kind of that, more, I guess, than action, and almost like a softer, more than forceful kind of thing.
I agree with
But
that.
it's kind of the but not saying that you can't be stern or powerful in that role as a feminine, but it's the way you carry yourself. And so as a feminine, that, I mean, I see that, but now you have to understand, I was born in 73, so we went through the whole feminine movement. Like, I saw a lot of that, and it really put a bad kind of light on the idea of being a strong and powerful woman, because it was like they had to give something up. So that always kind of plays into my original definition until I began on this journey and realized that being powerful and being assertive and setting your boundaries, but still doing it in a softer way and not a forceful way, and really thinking it through instead of going on action, you know, responding instead of reacting, is the way, is really a feminine role. They're not a lesser or weaker.
Mm.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree with that about the softer thing. I think where in society we get off on that understanding of being soft, we think it means to be vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
and vulnerable in a way of somebody else has control, and it brings in that submissive thought of somebody
Mm-hmm.
else having dominance over the divine feminine, over the feminine period, not divine. Take that off the table, off the feminine, and so that causes for one to feel as if they've got to have this power struggle and to come out of the role of being feminine, of this idea of someone being a damsel in distress, which causes them to throw into their masculine energy, and they don't feel comfortable being in the feminine because, again, society or other people have taught them that being feminine in that part is being so-called weak,
Mm-hmm.
in some ways. And we're talking about the worldly feminine things. We're not talking about the divine feminine, but just the definition to me of feminine. That's the way our society. Now, feminine nurtures all of those things. Nurturer. Um, well, it could be also protector. One who is can see visionary, can see beyond. I've always been taught that uh, that the divine, I mean, that the masculine, I'm always saying divine, that the masculine is one that cannot see forward thinking, but they live more so, masculines live more in the now, and feminine's energy has more so being able to be forward thinkers. They can see beyond, like, if I do this, this is going to cause this to happen, although I haven't actually had it to occur. And so that's what kind of, in the way of thinking, we think a little different. More of the masculine is more of a now, and we're more so in the present, in the past, and in the future. We
Interesting.
all
Okay.
those type of
Mhm.
and so that's what, when I think kind of semi, when I think feminine, just the feminine period in general, those are some of the areas in which we are able to master. April.
Beautiful. I think that was really beautiful, especially that summation there at the towards the end of it. We are the all-encompassing. I was talking to Kathy D the other day about femininity, and in Native American cultures, I do sweat lodges and stuff like that. I haven't been for a while, but what the imagery is you're going into the womb, you're going into space, like out deep, deep space, this creative matrix, this creative womb, and you go in there with your prayers and you release, and there's a ceremonial process to it. And one of the beauties of that is the imagery of women being the space or being the carriers. And that concept of time is very interesting because I love how you said we are in the future, we're in the past, we're everywhere, but being in the now is where we do have a lot of power. And that's when we have our union, right? Our masculine and feminine union, which is a really cool. Um, I'd never thought of it like that. That's so neat. Anyway, um, femininity is something that we all embody. The only reason we're even able to talk about masculine and feminine is because we have them as our visual representation of sex, our sexual
Mhm.
organs. That on a on an old paradigm scope of feminine and masculine, they you assume that the feminine will just receive and receive and receive. Or they call us what? They call them gold diggers. They call what else? What? There's some other negative connotations that they have for women, but they didn't realize that a woman being able to store and hold, not necessarily in a competitive masculine way, right? Like I don't need to hoard all the resources, but I know how to best allocate those resources. And so when you're looking at cultures that were led by feminine, by women, they tended to have better understanding of those properties, like how to, who's sick, who needs help, how do we manage the society in terms of our food, and they're also very, very intense protectors and warriors. I know if you've ever had a female dog, they're far more protective than actually
Yeah,
male dogs.
that's all
So
I have.
we're looking at feminine in this really beautiful construct, and we're shaving off old paradigms as we step into divinity, because divinity understands that it's part of the duality. It's part of the masculine and the feminine, but it's neither, and it's both, right? And then we're having this wonderful representation in society because I think things mirror where we're having like spectrum. We're now introducing or reawakening our understanding of the third sex, basically like intersex people, transsexual, um, and and that's a really interesting thing. And the reason that so much I think people have what's the word, friction or contradict, or like they have
Uh,
friction with the concept is because they no longer can hard define feminine or masculinity. And that's more of even the rise of the divine feminine, the rise of the goddess energy is being able to have definitions become more malleable, more forgiving. The mother, the caretaker is usually forgiving of what's going on and sees the bigger picture. So we're stepping now into our definition, I guess, of divine feminine. Does that work for you guys? That flow of we are feminine, we acknowledge a masculine, these hard, rigid structures, and we soften into divine feminine and divine masculine. And we've had our discussion about divine masculine, so now we enter into divine feminine. Um,
And one real quick, let me jump in with this. The neat thing is you were talking about we're going back into, the three, the male, the female, and then, the multi-gender. And, you know, back in Greek times, Greek and Roman times, they were there. You know, it was considered there were the three genders.
Mhm.
So it's interesting how history repeats itself and how we react to it, that Greeks and Romans had no problems with this, but this society, for some reason, has a problem with it. And I just think that's interesting to bring up, that this isn't the first time this has happened or, you know, been brought to light.
The
Say that.
Hawaiians. Hmm?
Pardon?
Because I was distracted. Say that one more time about so I can catch on. Do you say it about
In,
3 times again? I'm
in
sorry.
Greek and Roman times, there were considered three genders.
Oh, okay, got you. You know, I got to
And
repeat it. I,
and so
The
it's not the
Hawaiians.
first go around on this.
okay.
The Hawaiians themselves have always acknowledged this. The closer
Mhm.
that you get to, like, I know that there's some Native American tribes as well that find that role. There's a role for that, and here they call it mahu. You know, when you have mahu, as far as I understand, but I know it's not a complete definition. It's kind of like you're one physical sex, but your inner sex is another, has more of the attributes of the other.
Mhm.
And in this society, which I think is really cool, in Hawaiian society, they really promote the males caring for the women. Cooking is one of the roles that they like to show, caring, and they used to, well, there's a lot of stuff that goes on with the culture, but we're getting off track of the divine feminine. I've noticed this about me. I don't know if you notice this about you, but I really don't like looking at me and going further and further. I love to be that supportive role. I love to be that caring. So do how do we do divine feminine and care for ourselves? How do we enter in? One, well, how do you guys think about your femininity? How are you embracing your femininity? Is that a good one?
Yeah,
I think that's a majorly important one.
right. Several things as you all were talking about. One thing in my mind was thinking like, where did the train societal way, where did it get off the track when we're talking about the image of the feminine? I think about if I'm going through, and I'm not a historian, so I don't want to talk about. She is way off track on her, but I'm thinking about like in as we go along some of the periods. I think like 50s to me was like the traditional feminine role, that the woman was, take care of the house and her thing, and she was feminine. It was to me house. And then as somebody is just bringing me fast forward, I guess into the 60s when it was about the free to brawl and women's live, and then it kind of to me, not this is fault, but the view of divine, of the feminine period, divine to me is just the ultimate utopia of how a feminine should be embodied. It kind of got more skewed as far as, and then it got us off center, and then we start saying, okay, well, whatever a man can do, I can do too. He can bring on the bacon, fry it up in the pan, I can do it too. And then we kind of lost that softness that we talked
Mm-hmm.
about earlier, far as us being in that feminine. 50s, 20s, we still use now je ne sais quoi, the feminine, it wasn't considered that you were being promiscuous. If you were doing that using your feminine, you just into your body. But then after a while, it started to come to a way where this veered off until our identity of being that soft person, or being that gentle spirit, or being that one that's into conscious about their body and how they move, and everything. And it became to a point that it was like body shamed about you being a certain type of way, very curvaceous and wearing tight clothing. You're like, well, I'm not really, it's not about you, it's about how I want to dress. And I think it also, we're kind of moving and melting into that even now, about how we present ourselves as feminines to the world. A lot of times it gets judged, and you're saying, well, a lot of times I'm not dressing for you. I dress a certain way. If I clothe myself this, or I say this, or I defend myself as a certain way, it's always stated as a stigma. Or, oh, she's loose, or she's this if I wear something form fitting, or if I speak up for myself, oh, she's the angry woman, or whatever like that. And so it kind of makes you like, okay, well, Jesus, if I feel like expressing myself like that, as a woman, okay, now it's a big fat question mark in my mind as far as am I free to really express who I am as a feminine, or is somebody's always going to be putting air quotes on that? Oh, there she goes again. So, that's when you're talking about that viewpoint of how feminine is, as a feminine, it makes you question yourself as far as how am I expressing myself
You
in
know,
some way.
Most definitely.
one
So
thing
the
that's
three
part of the
steps that I'm saying. Uh-huh.
one of the thing that's part of the definition that they always give women is intuition. And it's very interesting to me that intuition is something that can't be boxed or housed. But within the masculine construct, we want to box and house and define everything rigidly.
Yep.
So maybe it's that inherent kind of the difference between the hard and fast and the soft. Women are given this ability to be more malleable. And because we have the water like yin type energy, we come across yang and we think, how do we stand up to yang? We be as yin as possible, which is like a really warlike. But you've heard of Kali or Pele or any of these destruction goddesses. Was it a set? Was it the Egyptian one? It's the energy. They use this archetypal energy. Archetypes are really cool because they help us understand the spectrum of feminine and masculine. It's like saying, it's like, how do you define God? How do you define goddess? You don't really, but you kind of try. So as a woman, they've been kind of trying to define us and house something, but you can't house nature. You can't house a wind or a wave, really. You can try to control it. You can try to mold it and scorn it. And I think that's part of what you're talking about is society scorning these outcries of the spectrum of femininity.
Right.
And when we step into our divinity, we're allowed to have the flow. We're allowed to be in that sacred space where we honor our intuition, we honor the actual form, but at the same time we allow for change and we allow for flow. And I think the fact that part of the roles of the sexes, masculine and feminine, a lot of women have been left undefended or unprotected. They were thought of as a property, which was you can't define a woman, another being, as you can't have ownership over it. You might have guardianship, which is one thing, but ownership never should have really been part of the process of this. So we're kind of cleansing ownership out of the way, right? Because men, I don't know if I want to, no, I'm not going to go there with it. When you try to own or define, that's the issue we're having with our earth, right? She's fighting back in not so subtle ways. Um, so I'm going to read this just because I wrote it down and it makes sense for right now. But it just occurred to me that if they redistribute wealth like we're redistributing knowledge, then the earth will be able to flow with as much grace as this improperly written sentence. I wrote that because I was trying to be funny to them because they're teachers. But what I mean by that is we are part of the earth. We are part of the feminine. We all come from mothers. We all come from female. But we were also created through the union with the masculine. If we can tap into the spaces of what it means to be our feminine self and flow with our earth-like nature, then the entire earth is allowed to have breath and come into balance. Because we're working to define so that we can help break down the rigid structure. The actual definition doesn't really cut it. You know what I mean? Like we say that women tends to be the leader in union because she understands the intuition that the material isn't 100%. Right? It's about actually like maybe 87% of our twin flame experience. There's a whole 13% there that's flowing through that's just straight spirit. And a lot of us, because we're even able to have this conversation and put it out, we're now spreading a consciousness. Like I know Kathy V was texting a little bit earlier about her having some really intense experiences as stepping into her divine feminine self. Can you tell? Can you? I don't
Oh,
know.
it's just been like today. The energy's been real crazy. My soul sister and I have had. We've been hot and cold, and we text each other, and she was telling me this, and I'm like, I have the same thing, and so we're like, what's going on? And we went from extremely cold to then just about to explode from the heat. It felt like, and it was all internal. On the outside, we weren't, temperatures weren't changing, and then it just finally leveled out. um severe headaches, but just like on one side, just really not migraine-ish, but then like the piercing ear squealing and all this kind of thing. We were going through it actually together, and like um, Divine Sunshine and Jupiter say they're in union. Bonita and I, we might as well be right there on the same path, because even looking at past life stuff, we have intersected.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I've been getting super nauseous with everything. I haven't been able to. I mean, I can do liquids right now, but I haven't been able to do anything without it making me feel some kind of way. And last night it kicked off where it felt like my feet were on fire. And when you said that, I was like, this is tripping me out, man. Because I feel like we're all breaking through these molds on these energetic levels, but we can only express this and have this conversation from a feminine perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we really try to define it as something, we're gonna try to logic our way out of it. But science doesn't describe spirit; they're just masculine and feminine. Like you cannot,
Mm-hmm.
but you can try.
Well, what it seemed like to me with all this stuff going on, the different temperatures and the burning feet and all of that, I really felt it was like the merging of myself as feminine and masculine. It was like the really bringing my whole being into union. It was like clearing off things, clearing out things, maybe burning things off, freezing things out, however, and then bringing into that space together was kind of how we kind of saw it.
How about you?
They're bringing to me like you're lancing something. Sometimes you lance swords of things with ice, freezing ice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, like a wart or something.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
that's what they just.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
that's
and
why
in a boil, you get to rupture with heat. When you
right.
think about like its skin, sometimes before you
That's
can lance it, they have to apply heat.
and so it's like, yeah, that's what I'm picking up. Yeah, and so I've been still dealing with the intense. I've told you all before you all even hit this stuff. Obviously happened before anybody else. 'Cause I had to take the forefront. But I told you about that ice when I talked to the
Mm-hmm.
dean, and I still have that. Now my whole back is like, I feel like somebody just pouring liquid like cold water, just right in the back, all the way back here on my back. I feel that. Like they're pouring. Even while I'm talking to you all, it's ice back there. Just pouring
Oh, okay.
right there. So
So
yeah,
you
we
are.
have all of these. What April?
I was just
What
saying
say?
it's happening. So if you're experiencing this, it's actually happening, and you
Mm-hmm.
can feel free to talk about it, have the conversation. I think Divine Pisces 222 said she had a forum that she has
Mm-hmm.
the twin flames
Yeah, she
talk
has a
to.
form.
Yeah.
So this conversation is happening. This is happening to all of us, and people are transitioning into this. So one of the reasons we called together to do the show today was to help reawaken the divine feminine to herself and her stories and the things that she can get rid of that are no longer serving her, so that she can step into her greatness and stay divine.
Mm-hmm.
A really cool example that happened right before the show is one of us was triggered into starting to manifest things, and I called it out and was like, "Hey, you're creating with your words. There's one thing to vent and let a story come out, but it is another thing when that passion drives you into start saying things." So um, it it's very interesting because we need that. The person I work with in terms of light body integration, there's a few people, but this one really cool guy, Dr. Andrew Matsukawa, he was talking about how you go through these emotions. These emotions are what trigger you and bring you through the different layers of the body for alchemical change. Right? So when you are in that process, and let's say you're being driven, you're in an extremely emotional state, you are then able to actually bring in more energy because you're releasing a lot of energy. So
Mm.
you release, you have to, once you get control of it, because it takes practice, it's a muscle, right? Because they've wired us societally to go frazzle and give our power away. But if we channel it and bring in, call out what we most desire, what we most need, it will come in to that space. Now we just need to be careful because when we're not focused enough on ourselves and what is truly happening, we can call back in more experiences of the same. And so there's a lot because women are all time and space. We get to heal the past so we can be as close to now and in the now as possible so that we can actually properly manifest our future.
And I can say honestly, because this whole journey, like I said, it didn't make a lot of sense when I first started trying to figure out, what's going on. Why do I feel like this? What, I've never, and as I learned more about twin flames, and yeah, my separation has gone on probably way longer than maybe originally most people expect one to go on. But I feel that it was because I hadn't learned that. I was still in that reptilian brain. I had been in corporate America, and then I was, and then a teacher, and I hadn't gone into the life coaching yet. So I had been taught, you speak your mind, if you're going to play with the big boys, you got to act like the big boys. Mine, when in the corporate world, black suit, the nice blouse and, 3-inch heels. So I still had that, what they considered feminine. But, so learning to play that way, growing up in a way that my parents put more emphasis on education than compliments. And it's important that as we come into our femininity, especially when it's in a divine state, that we can look at ourselves and say, we're beautiful, and not find the flaws in ourselves. And that's hard because in a society like I talked about with advertising, we see, all these Photoshop airbrushed, women, and then we look in the mirror and, we're like, but as we go through this, and I was raised in a family that emphasis was put on education. So I was never told as a little girl that I was pretty or I was beautiful, or, I wasn't a pretty princess. I was going to rule the world. And that really took a long time as I went into this with the divine feminine, learning to trust that softer side and learning to go in and be vulnerable in a good way, not a bad way.
Mm-hmm.
It was all right for, the DM to come in and make decisions. I didn't have to make all the plans. It was, it was all right for him to be there. I didn't have to say, I don't need any help. It was those kind of things that made it real interesting on this journey, depending on how, and going back to that programming. So a lot of it depends on we have to get rid of our programming. And if we don't, then it can make this, because we just repeat the cycle. We just keep going. And that's something we don't want to do. And we question why we do.
I'd like to say a couple of additions to that. It's not just the deprogramming, it's the reprogramming. It's actually being aware that there's a program in general, so that we can as feminine, reaching into our divinity. When we touch each other, we help encourage the slough off and the regeneration of who we define ourselves as.
Mm-hmm.
There, there's a thing when you take something out, it either becomes a vacuum and sucks something else right back in, or you fill it up. Like when the was it Japanese, the whole when your heart breaks open or you have to work through something, you have all these cracks, but you fill it with gold, so it's even stronger and more beautiful than before. So it's beauty in our design, it's beauty in the design flaw, and that's what makes us unique and individual. And if we were all the same, we wouldn't have that perfect fit. And that perfect fit is, of course, when we hit inner union and when we actually hit our regular, or, our straight union, that divine fit. I'm like, pull a card.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about also, they have been saying all along, even last year, that this year represent astrologically and in energy for us is the year of the feminine. And understanding that this is a new awakening. This is our year. Feminine energies, rather is housed in the divine masculine, or is either housed in the male avatar. Let me put it much better than that, or in the female avatar, which means which one are you housed in as far as the outside representation, as far as in the 3D, and how we are now in that energy of coming to that rise. That pretty much, and I guess I'm kind of staying 3D-ish, although we're talking about spiritual though, but we have to make sure that we mirror and bring them both together.
Most
That's
definitely.
what the Me Too movement came in. The Me Too movement came in to help us to understand that the way you were recognizing us as feminines and that image that you have as feminines no longer serves the new template or the new direction that we're going in this new world that we're doing. That the feminine is no longer to be looked upon as someone who is soft and has no edges and has no bite and has no defense at the same time, that you can't just go ahead and give her orders and then she goes ahead and just follows that through. And that submissive thing where the man is this way and the male energy is here and the feminine energy is down here. And it's like, no, we got to come to this equalness. Again, why we have the things that are happening also in the world now is because it's a reset. It's a reset for everything. It's a reset for how you even seeing. It's the inner journey within. And by you taking that inner journey within, you should be able to come out with a newfound respect for all living creatures, rather it's feminine, masculine, animal, beast, insect, whatever, those things. And so now we're moving into this energy to understanding the divine feminine. It's some things, again, like April said, we have to come to the point of understanding that we've got to heal within ourselves, understanding about what is the idea of us programming when we were a child, or reprogramming, as April says, as a child as well too, is who you are as a feminine. A lot of us looked at our parents, at our mother. Our mother was the ideal image of who femininity is or was or should be. Let's put it that way. I see 33. Now, if I would look at my mother as one, I would say she was one that was more so thrown into the masculine energy. She's the go-getter. My dad was always working. He was a workaholic. He worked two jobs. So my mom had to take on the role of both mother and father. There, dad was there, but she had to, in another way, energetically, spiritually, psychologically, mentally, she had to take on both roles. Which again, how do you move on from that, seeing that role, and then now you've got to move and help to balance yourself out into that feminine energy as well. And I know I'm not by myself. You get that from maybe single parent homes as well, and you see them saying that, and it miscues the whole thing. So we have to, going back to the childhood, yes, I'm going back to that, to the wounds. You've got to kind of go back into that and heal that as well, because of that template that either has been from in the now, or even maybe in the past, if you believe in past lives or whatever experiences that you had too. They have can also help to shift who that image of who you think our identity is as a feminine, period, as the role too. So That's another aspect I like to just throw into the ring of how that's got miscued too, not just the society, but let's bring it on home and talking about, your parental or family. How is that also looked upon as well?
And I think too that if you grew up with a distorted partnership with your parents, and I can say this, my father's gay, and at the time, the way to, of course, cure that was to marry a nice girl.
Right.
And so there was major distortion there, because talking about, wearing a mask and all of these facades, all of this was going on. My mother didn't know for years. It was just a really interesting dynamic to grow up in. But the good part of that is I grew up with a complete and total understanding of all race, creed, color, any of that. Nobody was judged anything different than anybody else. If a good person is a good person, it didn't matter. And so there were benefits to being raised like that. But when we're talking about the masculine and the feminine, watching my father struggle with this masculine role, and then watching my mother struggle because she was then thrown into the masculine role. It was real interesting. So then for me to grow up and be, I'm independent, take care of number one, I don't need a man, I can do this, kind of thing, was kind of instinctive from both of them. And so I really didn't have a lot of the feminine, because my mom wasn't able to show it, because she kind of was in the take charge role. My dad was always working or teaching. He was an English professor. And then my dad was just kind of, as I look back on it, I can see the pain that truthfully society put him through, because he didn't match their mold of who he was supposed to be, instead of allowing him to be who he was. And so that avatar distortion, taking, if you are, and not saying if you're a male and you're the divine feminine, that's what's going on. No, my father was in that role. And on top of that was, had the feminine energy, was his strongest energy.
Yeah. And
I'm sorry.
Oh
no, because there are men that are divine feminine that are, just some of the biggest, muscle builders, man's man you could, ever meet. And I don't want that to be construed with what I'm saying, but what we say, like society wise, and then growing up with that already distorted viewpoint on how everybody should act, then I think added that other layer for me. One, I had a benefit because I was, open to everything, but I was also very trained to be very dominant, that I could take care of myself, very independent, but not in the best way as a feminine. I could, when I was in the corporate world, I could be very harsh and very, I could run right there with the boys club. And, my DM made the comments, "Oh, you're so strong. You're the strongest, woman I know." Like that was some kind of shock, And so learning through him, I learned, how to tap more into my divine feminine side. And, that helped a lot. And so if you are stuck, that's kind of what I was roundabout way of getting to. If you are stuck in a situation where you feel that you have to be very, more in your DM role than your divine feminine, it's all right. I mean, you'll figure it out. It's not hopeless. If you can come from the distortion that I did and see it and come into union with yourself, and then know that a pending 3D union is literally right there, then that it's, you're bringing it together.
You bring up a very good point what you're saying about that, because he always, my dad always remind me, what's the good? So my thing is, yes, it was good to see my mom, and she says that too, both roles, is the woman, the doer, the assertive. Those are all like masculine when you look up the traits of that. And I know how to go into that. The thing is, why are DMs, and yes, I'm going outside, come and awaken us is because they're reminders like, hey, you kind of doing my part. That's my role. It's okay. You got to kind of balance. And they come that point when they show up, it's like you didn't kind of got a little kind of out of whack. It's like, oh, it's okay. And sometimes even when we're with the DM, they kind of remind us when we're kind of still in the DM. It's like, okay, we can't both be DMs at the same time. Now, which one you gonna play? You're gonna be in your DF energy of that, and that's why you get that propelling too, as well. Because when you do DM, like what you say, I don't do that type of action. I'm like, okay, one of us has got to kind of flip flop, and then naturally in the going off on the tangent a little bit, but even in the scope of our relationship, you'll see the balance of the trade off from the divine feminine. You're in this divine feminine, he's in divine masculine, or vice versa. We'll swap. But when you're in that DM, and that's a lot of times I know at the beginning when I met my DM, that's what make us go like this. We couldn't get no kind of headway when we was in DM to DM. And I also see that even in energies, because I like the discussion we had earlier with April. Really, it was DM to DM. We were both in, because I felt when I was in my DM energies, and I was like, she's in her DM, and we're doing this.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
We're doing this, and I said, oh Lord, I almost called my DM's name. I could tell. I said, would you go sit down and let me handle this conversation with her because you messed some things up. I'm like, shut up. Because I know he's the one like, baby, we going to have it to the end, the last word. I'm like, that's not me. Would you go sit down? So you can tell right here. When
you're in conflict.
That's what you need, the divine feminine energies, because we'll know like, okay, I heard you. Now, okay, I'll let you have your piece. And now let's bring it around. And then you be like, yeah, he ends up saying, yeah, baby, you right. I didn't think of it like that way. That's why you need that balance of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, because it just helps to bring that balance out. It's just how the world is equaled and how it's pretty much balanced or created from that energy. You need that positive and the negative, because if you got both, you start propelling. That's just scientific. That's science. It's not going to happen that way. And so, that you brought up a very good point. There's nothing wrong. What we need to do in order to start the healing process, as April said, is to see that, okay, that's good. Let's not go back to, as I call Ayana Van Zandt says, beloved, don't go back and relive the story over again. Stop telling the story. Look at it as an observer. Yeah, mom did this. She had to take on two roles. Same thing with Kathy. Mom had to take on two roles. Now, what can I learn from that? Balance. I needed to balance from that experience as a child. That doesn't mean it was anything wrong with what mom did. Mom did what she had to do in order to survive in that situation. But I don't need to survive. I can look at the situation and say, okay, you know what? I can switch roles, like people said, and be like water. Be very fluid from my masculine. Okay, now that's a little too rough. Now let's power down and let's go into the feminine and become soft, and let's soft off the edges too. So I understand that. Like you said, that's one thing of when we can heal from looking at our childhood, and we can heal from that and recreating the script and the story of how we viewed our parents, our mother, most times, because that's where we get the divine template of a feminine from our mothers, and say, okay, let's learn, let's not pick part, let's not tear mom down, but look at his point of, okay, there's some things that I like, some things I can leave on the table, some things I can take in as my own and take it from there. So April, you wanted to add on?
That is one very beautiful and very self-aware. And as we awaken our divinity, let alone our divine femininity, we're able to have more compassion for ourselves and more forgiveness for others as well as ourselves. So the key to reaching a state of entering divinity is knowing that things are constantly changing and being open to that higher, more positive result. You can go a negative spiral if you want, or you can go in a positive spiral. Um, you and Divine Unisoul and Jupiter 1111 often talk about going into your positive tower moment, right? And
Mm.
Your aha moments.
each of us can willingly step into aha. Oh, I see where this came from. Oh, I see how the earth feels this. Oh, I see how my mother feels this way. And
Mhm.
you start to step into that space, you become that oneness, that one balanced energy between your masculine and feminine, and you're making your decisions, your responses versus reactions to something you resisting or falling into from the past.
Mhm.
One of the beautiful experiences within the dark night of the soul is when you release the pain and you hold on to the joy and the hope and the love that comes out of that, and the new you, the phoenix rising moment, right? Because there all this pain and passion is releasing from you, and you can step into the guidance of the new. But there's so much familiarity, there's so much built in the body of from the old paradigm, right? From the old life that you had, from that old past experience. But if you can just allow yourself to see the spaces in between and realize you are in the now. I love how you said that you're not living someone else's life, you're living in the now. And you can forgive that person's life, you can forgive that person's experience, because you don't have to carry it anymore. And the more you can actually acknowledge it, because I think it's more like a masculine thing to define it. As a feminine, you could just say, bye, I release you now. Even a mother, when she sets boundaries, she sets them in a healthy way so that her child can be the best they can be. If the mother themselves is in balance, and we're all in a state of forgiving our parents and forgiving our society for being built the way it is, forgiving king and queen so and so from so long ago that let the ball drop and made themselves more elite than their people. Within the responsibility of the king and queen, of the emperor and empress, is their kingdom, right? Your responsibility is your temple and is that which you are created and given guardianship or stewardship of. So we are plant earth beings, right? We want to connect to our planet and to our feminine. Just enjoy the space, the body. If you want, you can go ground, you can go out barefoot, walking around, or you can just touch a plant or acknowledge its beauty. You could look at pictures on your TV of different places around the world that people have loved and cared for. You can look at the breadth of forests, and they have these videos of the earth, right? And their time sped up, and it looks like the earth is breathing
Oh
because,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
it is breathing. And when we
Yep.
allow ourselves to breathe, we allow ourselves to flow. The same thing with when we're in pain or in some kind of anger or something, we start to crouch in, we start to tighten and tense our body. Why is that? Because, well, we also hold our breath. Why? Because we think we're holding on to a moment, but everyone knows moments change. That's the only constant is change.
Mhm.
So allowing yourself to change, allowing yourself to forgive, allowing yourself to flow will really step you into your femininity. And that childlike joy, that childlike wonder that you have will start to be peaked at different things. And just acknowledge yourself, acknowledge where you are, whether you're masculine in a masculine body or a feminine body, you have both. But it's a time for female balancing. And that also means setting boundaries as well. And that also means caring for yourself. And it's okay. Like, I'm a single mother right now, but I know that I will get the support that I need. But I know that I need support. I'm not all, I got to do it all by myself. I
Yeah.
used to be that way until I realized, I really can't. And I was humbled at birth by given a physical disability upon arrival. And I was like, they're like, nah, you need to slow down. You need to realize you do need to have support. And when we look within and when we actually evaluate, we know what to ask for. We're so busy saying, I want this, I want that, I want my divine masculine. It's like, no, you really need to shed off certain belief structures that you have about yourself, or men or women, or, you know, about your past, and heal that so that when you actually do have your divine masculine or your divine feminine, you can stay with them and balance with them and anchor in this love and light that we raise the earth's vibration with. And that's what it feels like. All the stuff that's happening to us is shifting us and making space so we can hold this higher vibration.
It is. It is.
And the more you're open to it, the more it's going to shift you, really and truly. When you ask for the guidance, for the help, just from the powers that be, whatever, you know, you believe yours to be, and when you ask for that, it comes in. They're literally just waiting to help you. This is definitely something you do not have to do by yourself. You should not do by yourself. I mean, really and truly, you know.
I also want to put out there that there's no bad or wrong. Okay, we like to define as I made a mistake or I did good. Right? So that's old paradigm thinking. That's too rigid of a structure. You are doing just as you need to be doing for the flow of all of positive humanity, right? Or however I word that later when I write it down.
Yeah, because I remember one time Jupiter 11, we had said that, and spirit, the guides had brought to me that, you know, you can't do anything wrong. Even if you think that you're doing it wrong, they said, trust us, we know how to recalibrate everything to make it right so you can go back. And even if you go left, they're like, okay, we can teach her a lesson where she's at over here. And that's going to eventually get her back to go back on the path. So, you know, it's just really at that point, it was them and dad. Both of them said, don't worry about that. You can't do anything wrong. You know, just go on ahead and just do it. Because you got to remember again, this is Earth. This is a teachable planet. There is no such thing as perfection here. That's out the window. I had to teach my mom that because she's like, it's got to be X, Y, and Z. I said, listen here, this is Earth. That's impossible. There's not going to be any kind of perfection. It's going to be something that somebody's always going to look at it and nitpick it. Oh, the screen, this, the that, the this, the that. It's always going to be imperfections that's going to be in there. So forget about the perfection. That's why you just go on ahead and just do it like Nike sign says on that. So Kathy D, so as we're starting to kind of go towards the end of it, what are some things that, some activities that we can do with identifying with ourselves as feminine, like being all right with who we are? Is there something that we can do? I feel journaling coming from you, but
actually not this time. Yes.
Okay, all right, I'll just tease you.
And it's called mirror work. Okay. And that's where you just spend that time, because it's something a lot of people have trouble doing. You know, literally looking in a mirror and not finding what's wrong. You know, you start off by finding the good. You know,
can I put out,
my eyes are. Go ahead.
Can I put out there that until you can love every inch of you, you don't know how to love.
That's right. That's exactly it. If you can't love yourself, you can't love someone else completely, because there are those of us that are going through this and we're a mother, and you know, yes, that's a different kind of situation, but still, as I've gone through this, I have learned more patience and more compassion with my own children, and being able to direct them in, you know, the right way that, you know, 2 years ago I wouldn't have. So, but mirror work is the main thing now. And then after that, then you go to the journaling. When you find, if there's one thing that you just can't, I knew I was going to go back to that. You just can't get over. That's when you take it and you transmute it. You know, if you look at it and go, oh, my nose is so wide. I can't, it's so big, you know, and then you transmute it. My nose is perfect for my face. My nose is beautiful. My nose helps me smell better. Mine, whatever, but you turn that negative around to a positive. And that's when you do the 5x5 journaling, where you write it 55 times for 5 days, and you wind up writing it 1,000 times. But over that time, you are reprogramming yourself to look at the positive. And if you go back the next time you do mirror work and you go back and you start in on your nose again, you write some more. Well, anybody that has ever done that exercise, by the time you're done with it, you got it down because you don't want to do it again.
Yes.
Your hand starts to hurt after 5 days. And you kind of you can watch your handwriting go down. It's like a little kid on the chalkboard, it just starts going down. But mirror work is the most wonderful thing. And start small, really and truly. Start with like your face. And then, fully move to a full length mirror. And then go to the handheld mirror with the full length mirror, and you turn around and you look at your back and go through that. You've got to be able to love all sides of you, because we are 3-dimensional. We're not 2-dimensional. We're not a flat surface. So we've got to be able to love ourselves in the round, in the rotunda, and embrace all of that, because that's who we are. And that, I think, really that's the main thing with all of this, and becoming in touch with our divine feminine, is the mirror work. And then, you just keep adding to it. You dance in front of a mirror. Whatever you need to do, you move, you do all those things, and just slowly, step by step. It's not an overnight process. And it's probably one thing that a lot of us still kind of get hung up on. When put in a stressful situation, we flip back to what we were kind of programmed to do. And that's where we've got to step back and say, well, wait a minute, that's not me anymore. That's not my story.
Beautiful.
That's true. That's true. April, do you want to do some kind of exercise at this point?
Sure. I want to add a little bit onto what she was saying.
Okay.
You need to find out where your belief system came from in the first place. Why do you think negatively about certain parts of you? Why aren't you allowed, or why haven't you allowed yourself to accept your whole being by now? I found that every 10 years, like on the 20th, the 30th, and most likely the 40th, you give up a bunch of, this is an adult show, right? It's rated adult. You give up a bunch of your F's, just saying, about what other people are saying about you. But then you get to a point where if you're on a good path, you say, what do I like about me? What are the awesome things about me? Building yourself up, and you attract your tribe, like these lovely women here. And we build each other up, and we have the pleasantness of agreeing to disagree. We can see different perspectives. We often even say, well, what do you mean by that? Because it's bringing up XYZ trigger in me, or I want to be heard, or, different things like that. I'm like, oh, why do I feel like I want to be heard? Why do I feel like I got to stand up for me? Why do I feel like that? And it's a very fun experience. So, okay, in terms of what is coming through in terms of the energetics, everything is super shifty this year. So cool. And I feel like we are super catalysts in that assistance for the shifting. So I'm going to do a little visual meditation.
See, once again, April's clients calling in.
What you want again? What's your services again? How much is it again?
For you, darling, for this episode of The Playground. Okay, so we're going to do a little guided meditation. Before we go there, if you're feeling tension in your body often, or you feel a recurring thought often, you remember the last episode of The Playground we did the star and then the little rock and we exploded. If you do that, it'll release a lot of energy and tension. But I'm holding a sleeping baby right now, so we're just doing a visual.
Okay.
Okay, take some deep breaths. We'll take 3 together. 1, release. 2. In and out. Take this last one a little slower. In and out. Now we're going to breathe in and hold our breath this time. Let's breathe in for 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hold for 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Release for 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Breathe in again. 1, 2, 8, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hold for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And release for 10 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Breathe in and out like regular. However your body's telling you. You can either hold your breath or not hold your breath. Now, you can feel the space. Your physical body is turning more cloud-like. It's turning just like space. It's allowing things to come in and out. That which is of light can come in, and that which is of hardness can go out and flow in between these spaces. Allow your body to tell you where you're holding tightness, where you're holding, and where you're releasing. Let's go ahead and release what we need to release. And let's bring in a lot of love and light to that place which we release. Now we're going to come more solid. We're coming more solid. And let's just be here in your body. Just open your eyes. Feel yourself in the space. More whole and full of light. And you can repeat that exercise if you want. You can do it for longer, whichever. The reason I did the breathing the way I did is I wanted you to breathe in for an extended period of time, then hold and seeing the different parts of your body to release, and then you released more than you were holding on to. Does that make sense? So we did that cycle of breathing, and to get you into that state of just allowing for easy release. Okay, makes sense? All right. Welcome, ground. Tap your feet on the ground. Tap your heart on the
ground. I did that instinctively. I was like, my foot.
Okay, there you go. There you go. Okay, now we're solid. We're not clouds anymore.
Right.
What's beautiful about that feminine energy is she is flowy like that. She can become this ethereal. Trust that space. Trust your femininity. Trust your divinity.
Mm-hmm.
And talking about that trust, I just want to throw something in there that I found that's quite interesting. And that's when you go into these meditations, whether a guided meditation or meditation on your own, if you're just listening to music, eyes closed, and just kind of just being in the now. I have found, and I've talked to other people that, you know, as they close their eyes and they listen, there are different things that like you see. And it can be a shadow-like form or whatever. And like when you were doing the meditation just now, all of a sudden swans with their heads together popped up, you know, and it's what I saw. I've seen Egyptian things. I've seen different things like that. But I think those are things you need to take note of because your subconscious is telling you something. And so don't ever just pass it off as tricks of light. That there really is. You're really getting something. So even for people that are like, well, I can't meditate, you'd be surprised if you knew how many different ways there were to truly meditate.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I pulled a card from the Divine Feminine Oracle, and the card that came out is, it says, the Cosmic Egg, the Divine Feminine. I hold the universe within me. I am the force of an ever-expanding love. Oh, geez, this way. There we go.
Oh, gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. I'm going to take that imagery for my meditations. I like that.
Yeah. So this is it. So it's just, I always think about also the egg inside of it. Also, when I see on my cards intuitively, it always represents like a new beginning. We come from an egg, as also as humans, the embryo, the cosmic egg of how it's just and puts around us that light, that shield around us at all times. And to me, it's almost like at Easter time, like that egg, and it has all that good stuff within us that's housed inside of that egg, cosmic, like the world and the universe literally is inside of us, because we're made up of what, stardust and all those other good stuff, matters from the universe, from the Milky Way. We are one with that, and how we're just bringing in that energy, that magic, that power that we have housed within us, so that we can be able to expand ourselves to be that, able to house that ultimate or that divine or that unconditional love that we have, that power of being able to do that. And that's what makes us beautiful as feminines, because we are able, we have that ability to have that, express that unconditional love at all times. And that's why, again, that's why we come on this journey, because we awakened, because some kind of way we've forgotten that. So we can go back to that starting point of, hey, this is where you begin from the egg. In other words, who came first, the chicken or the egg? But anyway, let me go back. So, but again, that is how we come about that. So that's what I interpret when I see that card. Did anybody want to put their interpretation or something else that it was brought to them as far as
Archangel Michael, when you call in for his shield of protection, a lot of times you're given the visual of a golden egg. And so, yeah, when you said golden egg, and then when I saw that, that reminded me a lot of Archangel Michael.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Interesting.
That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Because
That is pretty.
that's always the meditation I put forth, is like surround yourself with the golden egg.
Right. You always say that.
I know,
Right.
and when you do that, I always think of Archangel Michael.
Blue and purple and all that good stuff inside that egg. All I'm seeing is a cashmere Easter egg with the good stuff in the inside, the chocolate outside. Oh my God, I want chocolate after this. Okay, so this is
Oh, well, I guess I wanted to say, on a physical level, we make eggs, right? It's all divine feminine power, right? We're creating. We are creators. We create. And
right.
I'm just enjoying this. This is beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, that is true. That's true. Okay, last words. Last words. Our final thoughts. So, all right. So we're gonna kick it off. Kathy D, you started off, so we got kicked to you. So we'll start with you and do the roundabout from that point on. So, final thoughts. Final words.
I just think it's important not to be caught up on our physical avatar. You
Okay.
yourself know where you are more, even though as you go through this and as you get more into and closer to union, you see that you really become equally, and how, like you've said, you work with both halves. But don't let anybody tell you who you are. That's where your intuition comes in, because then that's where we also wind up with problems when people tell other people who they are, gay, straight, whatever. You are who you are, and you're a wonderful person, and you know yourself which you are. And you need to embrace that and stand for it and believe in it and love it. Because those that love you will love you for that.
Right, very good. Yeah. And so I went next and then April was last. What I pick up is the last thing is, don't let your past define who you are now as a feminine. A lot of times you were doing a story, rather it's with parents, past relationships, past lives, or whatever, knowing that now this is the time in which you have been presented a clean slate, where you can redefine who you are as a divine feminine in this moment now, even in the experiences that you're having, or whatever the moment or the challenges or the let's see the card, the tower moments they have there that come towards you. You can create who you are or what energy you need. So if you have to throw yourself into the masculine, okay, at that moment I'm a feminine, as a masculine energy to get me through this. And at the moment, if I get thrown this away, I'm a feminine that needs to be in my feminine and divine feminine energies at this moment as an avatar. So do not feel bad at each way you might have to find yourself flowing to. Again, make sure that you are what you need in that moment. And don't feel sorry or let anybody on the outside define exactly who you are as a feminine. April?
Um, you know, society has conditioned us to do a lot. Our families, being part of those societies, have had to condition themselves and do a lot. And for us to be where we are right now, to have this conversation, it took a lot to put us here. So just reawaken that trust within yourself and, begin the process of self forgiveness and self understanding so that you can step into this new way of being, this new embodiment of the divine. And just thank yourself for getting yourself this far and even
Yeah.
having this conversation.
Yes, I like that. Yeah. Have gratitude for yourself. That's true, for how far you've came to even get to this moment, like you said. Just thank you on that. That's probably half your battle, and you start from that point on. I see it like it's opening up the egg. But you can't be able to submerge that just from that thank you. It caused the crack from that old paradigm template to submerge a new feminine. A new feminine is a dawning.
She, her.
Yes, yes.
She
I
read.
like
She read.
Here we go. And so this is the playground experience. So we have started off with we're gonna do the maid. The Hawaiian goddess herself made for this goldenlife.com. If you like what she was giving, those meditations, those things that help you be body conscious, how to be able to house the energies that you are of being divine, and seeing where also if you are tightening up or something from your past that's not allowing you to freely flow and be the divine goddess that you are, contact April Williams at madeforthisgoldenlife.com. Also, we have pineapple fishlifecoaching.com, extraordinaire life coach herself, Kathy D here. If you need those practical things, they help you through life to understanding what you need to do to make yourself have a better life or have better living, contact her at pineapplefishlifecoaching.com, and she can give you the resources to help change your mind. And also for me, DivineUnisouls11.co, if you're interested in any type of spiritual readings, such as I did there, intuitive life coaching as well. And also I have other products, such as when we talked about the inner childhood wounds that you might want to heal. Make sure you come and you check that out as well, because I have also workshops and workbooks rather, and have also done a workshop. I was jumping my mind. Also in my playlist, if you're interested in doing that, about the different childhood wounds. Also, when you go to DivineUnisouls.11.co, we have the playground experience. We talked about it last time, but I want to make sure that we come back to it again, that our services is not just only for childhood wounds, but our services is also for anything that you need. If it's mission, if you're saying right now I'm having an identity crisis, I don't know how I can really be the best divine feminine that I am at this point. How do I? Okay, that's spooky. How do I leave my iPad alone? Don't mess with stuff. Sorry. Again, with that, again, if you need to be able to do things as far as helping you with you being divine and missions, that will be able to use DivineUnisouls11.co, but through the playground experience, we'll be able to help you to create that experience that you need at this point in life. Like we say, living in the now, that's the now that you need for that one. So make sure the resources, anything, mission, if you just need somebody to talk in every area. So mine's the spiritual, April is the body, and Kathy D is the mind. So all those things, I think that's really good in this time period. You need that because you need that well balanced, like a well balanced meal. You need a well balanced spiritual meal too, as well as you're going through that. And the only way that we're able to get you off, be able to see this program like we have for this episodes of these shows, please make sure that you click like and share and subscribe to this channel so you can be able to hear more talks like this from 3 different dynamic aspects, from the spirit, the mind, and the body as well, so you can get that totality is for your life, so you can have a better living. All right, as always, so we'll start off with Kathy. Do your sign off, please.
Always remember to live your best life. See you soon.
Yeah. April.
Stay blessed, stay golden.
And always stay uplifted, stay motivated, stay ascending. Namaste, namago. Love ya.
Aloha.